I want to start by telling you what made me eventually write this video. It was not a single woman. It was not a single therapy session. It was instead a slow accumulation of observation over about 3 years, in which I noticed the same pattern, with small variations, in nearly every close female friend I had between the ages of 26 and 32. The pattern was so consistent that for a long time I did not see it. It was, like all common patterns, hiding in plain view, because I had assumed it was just what being a woman in your late 20s was like. The pattern was this: a woman, intelligent, accomplished, doing relatively well by every external measure, would on some quiet evening, after 1 or 2 glasses of wine, begin to describe her relationship with her mother. The descriptions varied. Some of the mothers had been cold, some had been critical, some had been smothering, some had been chaotic, some had been technically very loving, but in a way that required the daughter to manage the mother's emotions. The descriptions varied, but the structure underneath the descriptions was identical. The daughter in adulthood was carrying a specific quiet exhaustion that came from the relationship, and she had not, in most cases, named the exhaustion to herself. She had just lived with it as background noise. The exhaustion showed up in 3 places. It showed up in her dating life, where she kept choosing partners who reproduced some specific dynamic from her childhood. It showed up in her friendships, where she found herself either overgiving to women who reminded her of her mother, or quietly resenting women who did not. And it showed up in her body, in the form of a low, constant tension that she described as anxiety. But that was, on closer inspection, something more specific. It was the tension of a woman who had never quite finished being parented, who was still, in some part of her, looking for the warmth that had not arrived in childhood, and who was carrying that looking, like a small weight, into every adult interaction. I want to talk to you tonight about that weight. I want to be honest that I am not a therapist. I am someone who has spent a great deal of time reading about this topic, and a great deal of time listening to women talk about it, and who has, in my own life, slowly identified my own version of it. I am going to share, across the next 30 minutes, what I have come to understand. I am going to draw in particular on the work of Dr. Lindsay Gibson, whose book Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, published in 2015, has been for a generation of women in their 20s and 30s. The book that finally gave them a vocabulary for what they had been carrying. Make yourself a tea. Get comfortable. This is, I think, the most difficult video on this channel to listen to, because it touches the most carefully avoided room in the house. But it is also, in my experience, the most freeing one. The wound that has no name controls the life. The wound that has a name can be slowly attended to. One brief note before we begin. If you are watching this and your mother has died, or your relationship with her is currently estranged, or you simply have not spoken to her in a long time, the wound does not go away because the relationship has ended. The wound is internal. It is not located in the relationship with her. It is located in the relationship with your inheritance from her. That relationship continues in some form for the rest of your life. The work in this video is the work whether or not she is currently in your life. I want you to feel allowed to do the work either way. Let me give you 5 women. I want to draw them quickly because I want you to see, by the end of the chapter, the shape that is common to all of them. The women are composites. They are drawn from real people I have known. They are not individually real. The pattern is real. The first woman is 28. She is a senior associate at a law firm. Her mother was, in her own description, the perfect mother on paper. She drove her to every after-school activity. She made every birthday cake from scratch. She was present at every parent-teacher meeting. She also, in private, was unable to ever say she was proud. She corrected. She pointed out the small flaw in every piece of work. She had a specific tone when her daughter was disappointing her, a tone that did not require words. The daughter at 28 is now the partner everyone wants on a deal because she catches every error. She is also, in her relationships, completely unable to receive a compliment. When her boyfriend says she looks beautiful, she changes the subject. The pattern is so automatic she does not notice she is doing it. The second woman is 31. She is a teacher. Her mother was warm, charming, social, and when the daughter was 12, started drinking in the evenings. The daughter spent her adolescence managing her mother's moods. She knew which days she could ask for things and which days she had to be quiet. She knew when to come into the kitchen and when to stay in her room. She, at 31, is in a relationship with a man who, while not an alcoholic, has emotional weather she has to constantly read. She would describe this as her being intuitive. It is not intuition. It is the surveillance system she built at 12, redeployed in adult life. The third woman is 26. She is a designer. Her mother was, in clinical terms, narcissistic, although the daughter would not use that word. She would say her mother was just a strong personality. The mother's needs were the center of the family. The mother's feelings were the family's weather. The daughter learned very early that having her own needs was a thing that produced punishment. She learned to anticipate her mother's needs and meet them before being asked. She, at 26, is dating a man who has never once asked her what she actually wants on a Friday night. She is, in her own description, fine with this. She does not know what she wants anyway. The pathway in her brain that knew what she wanted died at age 7. The fourth woman is 34. She is a nurse. Her mother was in some ways the most difficult of the 5 mothers because she was unmistakably loving. She hugged her daughter. She said, "I love you." She made dinner every night. She also, the daughter has only realized in the last year, was profoundly anxious, and the anxiety leaked into the daughter as a constant low-grade sense that something bad was about to happen. The daughter, at 34, has been in therapy for the anxiety for 8 years. She has been treating the anxiety as a disorder. She is starting to suspect only now that the anxiety is, in fact, an inherited frequency from her mother, and that the medication has been treating a symptom whose cause is in a family system she has not until recently been able to see. The fifth woman is 30. She is a writer. Her mother was on paper the easiest of the five. She was kind. She was supportive. She was emotionally available. The problem was that she was, throughout the daughter's childhood, exhausted by her marriage, and she leaned on the daughter from about the age of 9 as her closest friend and confidant. The daughter learned that her job was to be the emotional caretaker of the adult, who was supposed to be caretaking her. She learned to suppress her own needs because her mother needed her too much. She, at 30, is the friend everyone calls when they have a crisis. She does not know how to call anyone when she has one of her own. She has never, by her own admission, fully allowed someone to take care of her in adult life. 5 women, 5 different mothers, 5 completely different presenting symptoms. The wound underneath in every case is the same. It is the wound of a daughter who was, in some specific way, required to attend to her mother's interior, when her mother was supposed to be attending to hers. The roles had been quietly reversed, often without anyone naming it. The daughter in adulthood is still, in some part of her, performing the reversed role. She is still in adult life, the one doing the attending. She has not learned that anyone is supposed to attend to her, because nobody adequately did. I want to talk about what specifically gets passed from mother to daughter, because the popular accounts of the mother wound tend to be vague about this. And the vagueness, in my view, is what makes the topic feel so unactionable. Let me try to be specific. The first inheritance is the regulation set point. Your mother's nervous system was the primary regulating environment of your first 3 years of life. If she was calm and present, your nervous system learned what calm and present feels like, and set its own baseline somewhere near that frequency. If she was anxious, distracted, depressed, or chaotic, your nervous system learned that those states were normal and set its baseline accordingly. You are not, as an adult, free to choose a different baseline. You are stuck with the one you were given. You can, with great effort, shift it. You cannot, without effort, change it. The second inheritance is the self-talk voice. The voice in your head that talks to you when you have made a mistake, when you have failed at something, when you are feeling unattractive, when you are in pain. That voice is, in almost every case, an internalization of how your mother spoke to you when you were a child. If she was kind in those moments, your inner voice is kind. If she was critical, your inner voice is critical. If she was warm but anxious, your inner voice will be warm but anxious. The voice you have been listening to your whole adult life is, in many cases, not your voice. It is the voice of a specific woman, captured at a specific point in her life, played back to you on repeat. You did not write this voice. You inherited it. The third inheritance is the script for love. From your earliest years, you learned what love looks like by watching how your mother loved your father, how your mother loved you, how your mother loved herself. Whatever shape that love took, you absorbed it as the template for what intimate relationships should look like. If the template was warm and stable, you will gravitate toward warm and stable partners. If the template was full of small wounds, you will, often unconsciously, seek out the same small wounds in adult relationships because they are familiar, and familiar reads to the nervous system as right. The fourth inheritance is the relationship to your own needs. Your mother, by her example and by her direct teaching, taught you whether having needs was a thing women were allowed to do. Some mothers say it explicitly. Some communicate it through behavior. The result is the same. You grew up either feeling permitted to have needs or feeling that having them was a small embarrassment. The latter is by far the more common outcome. Most women in their 20s and 30s have, in their default state, a slight embarrassment about needing anything. They do not know that this embarrassment was installed. They think it is just how they are. It is not how they are. It is what they were taught. Dr. Lindsay Gibson, in the book I mentioned earlier, writes this. I want to quote her directly because she puts it more cleanly than I could. She writes, emotionally immature parents are afraid of real emotions. They cannot tolerate emotional intimacy, are inconsistent in their attentions, and tend to react with criticism, blame, or shame. If that sentence describes even partially how your mother handled your emotions when you were a child, then the daughter sitting in front of this video right now is very probably an adult child of an emotionally immature parent. The label does not need to be a death sentence. It is just a useful name. The name lets you see the inheritance. The inheritance, once seen, can be slowly returned. I want to add one more inheritance that I almost did not include, because it is the most uncomfortable one. The fifth inheritance is the body itself, by which I mean the way you hold tension, the way you experience your appetite, the way you relate to your own physical presence in a room, the way you respond to touch. Your mother was your first body teacher. You learned how to be a body by watching how she was a body, by being touched by her, by absorbing how she felt about her own body. If she was relaxed in her own skin, you have on average an easier relationship with yours. If she was tense, dieting, ashamed, performing, your body has in some sense inherited a low-grade version of those states. I tell you this because I think most women, when they first encounter the idea of the mother wound, expect it to be primarily psychological. They expect it to be about emotions and beliefs. They do not expect it to be in their shoulders, in their stomach, in the way they catch their reflection in shop windows. The wound is, in many cases, primarily in the body. The body is where it lives. The body is also, eventually, where it has to be addressed. You cannot only journal your way out of a wound that is in your tissue. You also have to move, breathe, sleep, eat, be touched, and slowly teach the body that the conditions are different now. The somatic work is, for many women, the missing half of the mother wound recovery. Talking is necessary. Talking is not sufficient. I want to give you the specific symptoms in your 20s, because I think most women who have a mother wound spend years misdiagnosing it as other things. They think they have anxiety. They think they have low self-esteem. They think they have a problem with men. They think they need to manifest harder or work on their boundaries or read another book. The mother wound is sitting underneath all of those things, generating them. Until you treat the wound, you can read every book in the world, and you will keep producing the same symptoms. Here is what it looks like in the 20s. You overfunction in your friendships. You are the one who remembers birthdays. You are the one who organizes the group dinner. You are the one who checks in when a friend is going through something hard. You do not know how to ask for the same in return. When a friend forgets your birthday, you do not bring it up. You absorb the small disappointment privately. You add it to the small archive of disappointments you have been collecting since you were 8. You date emotionally unavailable men. Specifically, you are attracted to men whose attention is intermittent, whose warmth is inconsistent, and whose love feels like something you have to earn. You misidentify this as chemistry. It is not chemistry. It is the familiar shape of the love you grew up inside. Your nervous system reads emotional inconsistency as home. It does not light up for stable, available men because their attentiveness does not match the template. You think you have bad taste in men. You do not have bad taste. You have an inherited template, and your dating life is faithfully reproducing it. You struggle in a specific way with rest. You cannot fully relax, even on holiday. You have to be doing something. You feel guilty when you are not being productive. You experience downtime as a small, low-level threat. The reason is that as a child, you were not, in fact, allowed to rest. You had to be alert to your mother's mood, or her need, or her presence and absence. The alertness has become your default. The body has not learned how to be at rest. It is still at 28 scanning the room. You have a complicated relationship with success. You either overachieve in a way that does not bring you joy, because the achievement is for the approval of an internalized parental voice that will not, no matter what you do, finally say, "Well done." Or you underachieve, sabotaging your own success quietly. Because deep down, you have absorbed the message that you are not the kind of person who is supposed to do well. And exceeding that internal limit creates a kind of psychic dissonance you do not know how to handle. You apologize too much. You apologize for taking up space in conversations. You apologize for crying. You apologize for needing things. You apologize in restaurants for the food being slightly wrong. The apologizing is so automatic you do not notice it. It is the verbal expression of the original lesson, which was that taking up space in your mother's world was a thing she did not quite have room for. If 3 or more of these are familiar, you very probably have what we are calling a mother wound. The good news is that the recognition is the first half of the work. The wound that has been named can begin to be attended to. I want to spend a section on this specifically, because the partner is where the mother wound does its most expensive work. The man you choose and the way you behave inside the relationship with him is in most cases the largest live reenactment of your relationship with your mother. He is the stage on which the original drama is being replayed. If your mother was withholding, you will tend to choose men who withhold. You will then, in the relationship, work extraordinarily hard to earn their warmth, the way you worked extraordinarily hard to earn hers. You will read their moods. You will adjust yourself accordingly. You will mistake their occasional warmth for love, because intermittent warmth from a withholding source is in your nervous system exactly what love feels like. You will be exhausted. You will not understand why other women, who do not work this hard, seem to be loved more easily. They are loved more easily because they did not bring an earn the warmth template into the relationship in the first place. If your mother was emotionally overwhelming, you will tend to choose men who are emotionally underwhelming. You will mistake their distance for safety. You will appreciate, in the early months, that they do not require you to caretake them the way your mother did. After a year or two, you will discover that their distance is not safety. It is just distance. You will be, eventually, very alone inside a long, quiet relationship that you do not know how to leave, because the distance, while painful, is also more bearable than the overwhelm of your childhood. You will stay too long. If your mother was the friend rather than the parent, you will tend to choose men who you have to caretake. You will not call this caretaking. You will call it being supportive. You will become his therapist, his cheerleader, his manager of his emotional life. He will, in many cases, take this for granted because you do it so well. You will, sometime in your early 30s, suddenly realize that you have spent 5 years parenting an adult who was supposed to be partnering you, and that the dynamic is, in the literal sense, the dynamic you had with your mother. You will be tired in a particular way that no amount of sleep fixes. If your mother was a narcissist, you will tend to choose men who are also narcissists and who provide you with a quiet hit of recognition in their occasional moments of attention, the same hit you got from her on the rare days she was warm. You will, in this case, also overgive in the relationship, because overgiving is what felt like the only safe role at home. You will, over years, hollow out. The hollowing out is what eventually, sometimes, finally ends these relationships. Sometimes it does not. Sometimes women die inside these relationships in their 70s, having spent 50 years inside the original template. I do not say any of this to be bleak. I say it because the same nervous system that is reproducing the mother wound is also capable, with attention, of breaking it. The first step is to see, clearly and without flinching, which template you are running and which kind of man you are predictably choosing because of it. Once you can see the template, you can interrupt it. The interrupting takes years. The seeing is the start. I want to add something here that I have noticed working with younger women specifically. When you first identify the template, there is often a tempting middle stage where you swear off the type of partner you have been choosing and announce loudly to yourself and your friends that you are now only going to date a completely different type. The woman who has been choosing emotionally unavailable men announces she is only going to date emotionally available ones from now on. This sounds healthy. It is, in practice, very rarely sustainable. The reason is that your nervous system, which has been wired for decades to find one particular type of intimacy familiar, will not, in 3 weeks of intention, suddenly find the opposite type compelling. The emotionally available man will continue to feel boring. The unavailable man will continue to feel like home. You will, despite your best intentions, drift back toward the familiar pattern within a few months. This is not weakness. This is biology. What actually works is slower. You date the available man anyway, even though he feels slightly flat. You stay with the feeling of flatness without escaping it. You let your nervous system have the experience of being treated well, repeatedly, until it begins, very slowly, to recognize this treatment as something other than threat. The recalibration takes, in my experience, between 18 months and 3 years of consistent practice. It cannot be done in a weekend retreat. It can be done, but it takes time and patience, and it usually takes one specific patient man who is willing to be with you while your nervous system catches up to your conscious choices. I want to mention briefly why so many women have been in therapy for years and still feel that something is not being touched. The reason, in my view, is that most modern therapy is symptom-focused. It treats the anxiety, the depression, the people-pleasing, the relationship pattern, as if each were its own freestanding problem. It teaches techniques. It addresses the cognitive content. It does not, in most cases, go all the way back to the regulation set point of the first 3 years of life, because that work is slow, expensive, and uncomfortable, and most modern healthcare systems are not set up for it. The therapeutic approaches that do reach the wound are, in my experience, attachment-based therapies, internal family systems, somatic experiencing, and certain forms of long-term psychoanalytic work. These are not magic. They take, in most cases, several years. They are also, in my experience, the only approaches that actually shift the underlying inheritance, rather than helping you manage its symptoms. If you have been in cognitive behavioral therapy for 5 years, and you are still doing all the patterns I have just described, this is not a failure on your part or on your therapist's. It is just the wrong tool for the wound. I want to be clear that I am not telling you to leave your therapist. I am telling you that if you have a mother wound, the kind of work that addresses it directly is a specific kind, and it may be worth asking for it. The wound is not, in itself, a tragedy. It is just a particular kind of injury that requires a particular kind of care. I will close with what I think the actual beginning of repair looks like, because I do not want to leave you with a name for the wound and no path forward. The first thing is to start, in writing, the slow process of separating your own inner voice from the inherited one. When you catch yourself being harsh with yourself, ask, out loud or in your head, whose voice is this? In most cases, you will recognize with a small shock that the voice does not actually belong to you. It belongs to a specific person, captured at a specific point in their life. The separation, once made, is permanent. The voice loses some authority. You start slowly to write a new voice. The new voice will, in the beginning, sound forced and unnatural. By month 6, it will feel slightly more like you. By year 2, it will be unmistakably yours. The second thing is to mourn. This is the part most women resist. The mother wound is fundamentally a grief. It is the grief of a daughter who did not, in the specific way she needed, get what she needed from the person who was supposed to give it. The grief has to be felt before the wound can close. Most women try to skip this step. They want to forgive the mother, or understand her, or transcend the dynamic. None of those things work without the grief. First, you have to allow yourself to be sad for the daughter who did not get what she needed, not for the mother, for the daughter. The grief, when allowed, lasts a few months at most. The avoidance of it can last a lifetime. The third thing is to find in your adult life one or two people who can begin to do, in small ways, what your mother could not. A therapist, a friend, a partner. The work cannot be done alone. The nervous system that learned love from a specific kind of parent has to learn slowly that love can be otherwise. It learns this by being held repeatedly by someone who is capable of holding it. The holding, over time, rewires the inheritance. This is the slowest, hardest, most worthwhile work a woman can do in her 20s and 30s. The fourth thing is, eventually, to make peace with your mother. Not because she has earned it. Sometimes she has not. Because the energy of the unresolved relationship costs you, in your adult life, more than the relationship itself ever did. Making peace does not require reconciliation. It does not require contact. It requires internally releasing her from the role of the person who was supposed to repair the wound. She cannot. She did not. You will. The release is what allows you to stop waiting for her to do the work and to begin doing it for yourself. I want to add a fifth thing because it has been the most useful piece of advice I personally received on this topic, and I almost forgot to include it. The fifth thing is to mother yourself in small, specific ways every day, by which I mean do for yourself the things that a good mother would have done for the child you were. Make yourself a proper breakfast. Notice when you are tired and let yourself rest. Speak to yourself when you have made a mistake the way you would speak to a small child who had made the same mistake. Tuck yourself in. Take yourself sometimes on a small treat outing. Buy yourself flowers. Eat your favorite meal on a Tuesday because you felt like it. These actions sound small and possibly silly. They are not small. They are the literal exercises through which the deficit gets filled. The deficit is a deficit of being properly attended to. The attendance when it comes from another adult helps. The attendance when it comes from yourself is more reliable because you do not have to wait for another adult to provide it. You are the parent now. You are the parent you needed. The 2-year-old in you is, in fact, just waiting to find out that someone is in charge. When you start mothering yourself, she begins to relax. The relaxation is the slow closing of the wound. I will see you on Tuesday. This was the Femme frequency. If you have been carrying this for a long time, please be kind to yourself tonight. You have done well considering. You are doing well now. The wound is not who you are. It is just what you have been carrying. You can slowly put it down. Sleep well.